Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is already that time of the week. Match preview show is once again with us, and it's a home game for the Gills this week as we aim to make it 4 wins on the spin in Sky Bet League 2 as we take on familiar foes, Forest Green Rovers. We went to the new lawn back in December, a couple of days before Christmas, and played out what can probably only be described as a bore draw, and that is being generous. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by a Forest Green fan this evening. His name is Dylan. I'll put his details on Twitter in the description at the bottom of the video, so please go and give Dylan a follow. Dylan, number one, hope you're well, and number two, appreciate you coming on and joining us this evening.
No, thank you very much, mate. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Right, let's talk football. We'll start with recent form. It always seems a good place to start. Recent form being the last 6 in the league. So if we look at the Gills, it's 10 points from the last 18 available, but 9 of them points have come in the last 3. Before that, it was a defeat to Bradford at home and a defeat to Crawley at the same venue, and then the already mentioned bore draw at the new lawn. Since then, though, for the Gills, 1-0 wins over Sutton and Colchester United, and then a come-from-behind victory at Accrington last weekend by 2-1. And we currently sit 8th with 41 points from 26 games. Our opponents, you may want to turn the volume down if you're a Forest Green fan at the moment or of a nervous disposition. It's 3 points from the last half dozen fixtures. They've come by the way of a draw against the Gills, a draw at home to Wimbledon, and a decent away draw at Salford City. But in between there's been a 4-2 defeat against Newport, a 2-1 loss against Swindon, and a 2-0 home defeat most recently against Harrogate Town. Is it fair to say, Dylan, at the moment, many red cards in the last 6 as points is obviously a worrying statistic that needs to be sorted out sharpish?
Pretty sure it's more red cards than goals.
We've all been there. 6 in 23 last season we were up to Christmas. I feel your pain.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it matches what we're seeing on the pitch with performances. It hasn't been the best, obviously, with Deeney coming in charge. We have seen better glimpses of football under Deeney than we did with Horseman we had before him. I mean, the Swindon result, the Newport result, and the Salford result, we could have won. Newport, we were 2-0 up. Callum Jones gets sent off, and then 4 goals go in. So
Of course.
Show. Then the Swindon game, missed a penalty last minute and a chance in the lateral stage of the game as well. So that's another, chance. We could have won, go 3-2. And obviously Salford, luckily I was at that game, and I'm still bitter to that day that it wasn't a penalty. But hey ho.
The beauty of League Two, the beauty of League Two officials. But we'll probably have to do a whole episode on League Two officials. So this is the reason we get you on, because obviously there's circumstances surrounding rather than just looking at the bare numbers. And if we looked at it as a Gills fan, you go, well, 3 draws and 3 poor defeats. But obviously you go and watch Forest Green regularly, so you can know that, in that game we was probably better than the bare result. And but obviously three red cards in the last 6 is an issue. And I think one player that was red carded a couple of games ago against Salford was Ryan Innes, who I think's always had ability, but his issue has always been keeping him on the pitch through injuries and the fact that he seems to be suspended far too much, which has probably held him back in terms of a career that his ability and his potential probably should have given him. Would that be a fair assessment of Ryan Innes?
Yeah, pretty much bang on. I think what really lets him down as well is just the silly little mistakes that he didn't need to do. And that's what gets him sent off. Like at Salford, I mean, the penalty, I think it was Callum Jones that gave it away. And I think Ennis had a yellow card earlier on in the game, but it was down to him gobbing off to the referee what got him the second yellow. So it's, I believe anyway, I can't remember because I had a few drinks that day.
But I think it did say, I was looking at the stats and it said it was definitely 2 yellows, and it said for argument or a disagreement with the Salford player. So yeah, it's an avoidable red card, isn't it? You can understand if you're protecting a lead and the player goes through and you bring him down. I know saying take one for the team, but if it's stupid stuff just for back chat or kicking the ball away, then there's really no defence, is there?
No, it costs us the game at the end of the day. That's the only problem.
That's it, yeah. It will come back to bite you eventually, won't it? Because it's like people going, Lionel Messi is the best player in the world, but if he's not on the football pitch, he doesn't affect football matches, and that's the problem you're going to have. And in the most recent game, I think there was 2 new signings. One got booked, which was the new keeper on loan from Stoke City, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then you lose Gorin as well, who's now going to be suspended for Saturday's game at least. Is Innis back, or is it
I
just a
would
1 game ban,
believe
or is it
so,
3?
yeah. I think it's the one. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure anyway. But we've made a new signing like legit half an hour ago.
Oh, fair enough.
As well. So he's a loanee from Manchester United. His first name's Maxi, but I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce his second name because my
Okay,
pronunciation
fair
is
enough.
just
No problem at all. We'll leave him as Maxi then. That's fine. Looking at recent games, it seems 4-3-3 is the way that Troy Deeney's been going since taking over. There's not been any real variation from that. You've got your favourites that play in generally the same position. So it's tried to be something that Deeney's implemented is a bit of continuity and consistency of selection. But again, it comes back to the issue. If you keep having people getting sent off, then he has to change it, and he's going to have his hand forced. I think the one name that stood out is Matty Stevens. Having a look at his stats, he's got 8 goals and 1 assist in the league this season from 14 starts. I think there's 7 substitute appearances on top of that as well. So that's a decent return for a side that, you know, with the utmost respect, is struggling. He's not scoring enough. He's conceding too many and is at the wrong end of the table. He's obviously the one that jumps out off the page at any sort of person looking at the squad list. But is there a couple of others, sorry, that you'd say might be danger men come Saturday afternoon that would sort of go under the radar a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not too sure because obviously for me, Kyle McAllister is one of the bigger players that is a threat, but
Okay.
he's out with injuries. As well, I wasn't at the game to see the new lads, so I wouldn't know how Dominic Thompson's like.
Okay.
Obviously, Matty Stevens as well. Yeah, he's another threat. He's only just recently come back from an ACL injury, which, as we know in football, ACL injuries can either ruin a player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come back, and so I'd say he'd be a threat. He's looking to get more on the score sheets. But as well, a few other players like Charlie McCann, good little midfielder, likes to have a bit of a kick about really when it comes to challenges, and he's a bit ruthless in the midfield, shall I say. But as well, like Jamie Robertson as well, great fullback for us.
Okay.
So decent team on paper, but performances.
Played on grass, isn't it? Unfortunately, that's the trouble. Thompson's the lad you got from Blackpool, isn't it? I think Dominic Thompson come out of League One.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, yeah, again, I didn't see the Harrogate game, but I had a few good reviews from him on his performance. So
fingers crossed that he settles in and you start seeing some improvements in terms of performances results. Obviously, from our point of view, I hope that it comes after Saturday afternoon. Yeah. I want to talk about the club because obviously it's very prominent in the press, on social media, in newspapers, internet. That Dale Vince has obviously taken the club in a very different direction and going against all the grain of being a traditional football club. So I just wanted to ask you some questions, obviously, from a fan perspective. So if I've got this right, he came in around 2011 as a board member, or 2010, and then was appointed chairman a few months after. I think the first step was to stop players eating red meat because apparently it was detrimental to performance. And then he went one step further and said, the club doesn't sell meat. It's all substitute products, vegan, vegetarian, that type of thing. How was that initially taken as the fan base? Because I get that people have their own ways and their own choices in life, but it's one thing Dale Vince wanting to do that himself and trying to increase performance levels potentially by stopping players. But to stop a whole fan base from eating red meat or any type of meat, was it met with any sort of protest or barriers at the time, or was it just something that you just had to get used to?
I'd say it's been pretty much a divide around that time.
Okay.
A lot of fans were, very against it and, would have gone elsewhere, really, like Gloucester down the road or say you got the big
That's for me, that would be the big risk, is that you get people go and eat outside of the ground before coming into the stadium if they're completely against. Because we came to the game at your place just before Christmas and my daughter loves chicken nuggets. I like a burger or a pie, and we had the chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
they weren't horrible, but you can tell it's not chicken. But fair play, the portion of chips was brilliant. I thought the tea was decent, apart from I had to use oat milk. And a mate had a pigs in blankets, again in inverted commas, pie, and it was tasty enough. But if you're as much against vegetarianism or being a vegan as Dale Vince is for it, I guess it can cause issues.
Yeah, as I said, it has done, but I think for me, like me, for example, like you got to stick with it. You love the football club. You just, you ask many football fans at the club that they don't like Dale Vince for what he does, but he still puts money into the club.
Oh yeah, of course. So you
Just running
can't doubt him on
financially
that perspective. Yeah.
and yeah, so like we've got to respect him that way, but like, especially with vegan and eco-friendly within the club, then you ask many fans, they aren't vegans or they don't do anything to battle climate change themselves. Especially me, I'm not a vegan.
No, I'm
Obviously, when I
far
go,
from it. Far from it.
oh yeah, like tonight, I'll go eat steak and chips, whatever. But you
Absolutely.
know, um, it's just one of them. I always say to away fans as well, it's just one of them experiences. You've got to try. If you don't like it, you have to
Well, that
come
was the
back.
thing, and I suppose that's the caveat is you almost as an away fan, you come and you go, oh, go on, I'm going to give it a go purely because it is so different in terms of, like we've said, it goes so against the grain of a traditional football club. If you go to every football club, pie, burgers, hot dogs, sausage rolls, chicken nuggets, everything's meat based. So to then go completely the opposite direction, I suppose you have to admire his bravery. Um, and then he took it even further with, I think it was 2015, you became completely vegan, first football club globally to do it. And then
Yeah,
in 2021, it was another first worldwide, a kit made of entirely recycled plastics and ground coffee. Did I read correctly?
yeah, that's right.
Does it
So
smell of
we've
coffee? Can I ask?
I'll have to try and find it. Actually, I've worn it a few times. So it definitely won't smell of coffee now, but no, sadly it doesn't.
Oh, that's a shame.
But yeah, we've had a few records and a few certificates to mark us like the first ever carbon neutral football
Mhm.
club, and which is pretty cool. It's unique in its own way because what other football clubs can say that or
Oh,
sing that
absolutely.
really?
But as football fans, you'd probably rather get awards for your football team doing well on the pitch.
Yeah, but say it's just kind of grown. It's like it is what it is.
Mhm.
We go to watch the football and cheer a team on.
Of course.
We're not there to delve into different vegan cuisines or
No, I just wanted to ask because obviously we only get it from an outside perspective as an
yeah,
opposition fan. So I thought I just wanted to ask the question quickly about what actual fans of the club who go there every week think of it. So I guess, like you say, if you don't want it, you go to the local chippy and get sausage and chips or whatever before you go into the stadium.
that's it. Yeah, it's in League One as well. I remember obviously if you've been the big hill you behind the way end had a stage car park. So when we had Derby and Sheffield Wednesday there, and one person took out their own hands and put their own burger van on the top of there. And
I
I
bet that went down
believe
like
that
a
got
lead
more
balloon.
sales than it did on a match day.
Oh wow.
So it says it, don't it? It says what it's all about. That yeah, majority of Forest Green fans, eat before or wait
Or
after.
just put up with it, yeah, fair enough. Or just order chips.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, the chips are lovely. Oh,
Chips were banging. I'm not going to lie. I thought the portion
yeah,
size was. I thought for what you paid for the meal
yeah.
deal and the drink, I had no issue with that at all. And I like to say, it was tasty enough, but it wasn't chicken, which is
That's
always
it.
an issue. So
Downfall. Yeah.
anyway, back to the football. We've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I couldn't do this without asking. Um, Team news is not official yet in the sense that the press conferences are done on a Thursday, so we're having to work off of knowledge of what we've seen in previous games. So in terms of Gills, I think there'll be a couple that'll be doubtful. That'll be Dom Jeffries, who missed last week with a knee problem, and Ashley Nadesan. We had some sort of sickness bug went through the club last week prior to the Accrington game. What are we looking at in terms of Forest Green? How do you think Troy Deeney's going to go? Because we've mentioned this 4-3-3 system, but it's clearly not working. 6 games, 3 points, a lack of goals, conceding too many. Do you think you'll see some sort of change, or is he going to try and persist with it and give the system and the players time? Or do
I
you
think
have?
he'll carry on using the 4-3-3.
Okay.
As Dean himself is a very stubborn man, and he wants to, as we said, his own way. So I kind of would say that I reckon it'll be the same. He'll stick at it until it works.
Okay.
Um, which that could either go a good way or a bad way. He could carry on and we keep losing points to draws, or it could finally pick up and we actually start getting 3 points. But with us, the team, it's so strange because we don't know with what it's going to be because of obviously recent terms of publicly announcing about players Deeney, like your Franketti Dabo and your
I've written
Reece
them
Brown.
down. I saw it, and I have written them down. I wanted to ask you about Troy Deeney. I mean, there's the old saying that you dress your players down in the dressing room and you don't say anything in public. But it's fair to say Troy Deeney's taken that a step further. So he said, and if I've got this correct, I've not written down the full quotes, but he said, Reece Brown is my senior midfielder and he can't even be bothered to turn up for work on time. It is a continuation of nonsense. So he's clearly alluding to something under the previous manager, Dave Horsfield.
Yeah.
And I think technically you're on your 4th manager of the season, which is never a good sign if you include Duncan Ferguson and then I've forgotten her name, sorry.
Dingley.
That's it, who was put in charge for a friendly and then was replaced. I'll say that's never a good sign. If you're on 3rd and 4th managers, there's a problem. He then said about Darbo and his most recent performance, Darbo was poor and awful again. And then the bit that really got me was every time the ball comes to him, it looks like he's kicked it with his shin pads. This is a lad, and I know Deeney references, who was 1 penalty kick away from being in the Premier League 18 months ago, or not even that far. No, last May, wasn't it? So it's less than a year ago. So how do you take that as a fan base? Because I get a manager coming in and trying to put his stamp on things and trying to get his own ideas across. And I get that you've got to try and, you've got to give players a dressing down if they're not good enough. But there's ways and means of doing it. Has he stepped over a line? Has he crossed the line? Or is it something that you think as a fan base is potentially needed because of the fact that results and performances have been so poor throughout the season?
I think if you speak to each Forest Green fan, they'll give you a different answer towards it. I think a lot would like it, how he's come out. But for me, I think it's for the changing room, Dabo, look, that penalty's got to knock a hell of a lot of confidence out of you. In front of a 90,000 stadium, and you missed a penalty for your team to get the Premier League. That is
that's it. It's not just a penalty. It's not any old penalty kick, is it? It's a huge, huge penalty kick for like you personally and your club. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not what it's strange because it's like you don't want that for the lad to hear what Deeney has said about him. He said something that, no, he's not playing Tuesday.
Yeah, he said he come out and told him, didn't he? He said he's one of the fastest in the squad, but he gets run by every time.
Yeah.
So he's had a right go. It's 2 or 3 points that have really bashed him.
But Deeney's been right about him. Dabo hasn't, looked any good at all when he's come into the squad. For me, I was really excited by the sound
I
of
think
Dabo.
when you looked at it, a League Two signing, a player that was, on the verge of being promoted out of the Championship, I think everyone would have gone, cool, yeah, they've done well there.
Yeah, and it's like, I thought, what, that's happened in May. He's going to come down and prove a point that this is what I've still got. And I've moved on from that. And it just seems like he hasn't. And it's a shame because with a team that we've got on paper and we've got I think it's the second most expensive team in the league, we should be doing a hell of a lot better. And I did say at the start of the season, Forest are going to be comfortable this season. I reckon we'll just finish outside the playoffs.
I think I had you sort of 17th, I think, in my season preview. I thought and I was going off of what happened to us when we came down. There was a massive hangover, and you've seen other teams come down and struggle. Like, I think of the 4 of us that came down that season, there was us, Crewe, Doncaster, and one other, Wimbledon. And I think the highest they finished the season after was 13th. So for me, it looked like there's a big problem coming into League Two. But yeah, I don't think I envisaged the fact that you'd be bottom 2 and desperately battling to stave off back-to-back relegations, because it's a division that you've done very well in just a couple of years ago.
I'll say before we went up to League 1, we must have spent, I think it were 5 or 6 seasons where first season we came up, we were in a relegation battle but stayed up. But then for the rest of the season, it were playoff finishes. And it's
This is a massive, massive drop-off, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like obviously last season League One didn't help
Oh
it
yeah,
either.
sorry, yeah, I get that. It's a step up.
But
That was always going
like
to be a
League
challenge. But
Two as well,
yeah,
it's like, come on, like give us a chance. We've already had 1 year of bad football, and now it's another season. And but at the end of the day, it's football, and it's what goes on in
it's
the club.
similar to us because that's how we were. We came down from League One in 21-22, and then started 22-23. Like I say, we scored 6 goals in the first 23 games, and without the takeover, we were staring league, we were staring National League in the face. I'm absolutely convinced of that. So, like I say, after Saturday, hopefully you have a good window and you start picking up. And if you can have some sort of turnaround like we had from January through to the end of the season, then maybe you can get yourselves out of it. But it's got to start soon, hasn't it? The recovery, because the longer it goes, the harder it becomes.
Yeah, for us, it's got to start now, really, or because as we know, it's January now. The season, as we all know as football fans, as soon as it's January, it's the end of the season,
Yeah,
really.
because you're 7 points from safety already. So if you get beat Saturday, you could, and Colchester pick up a point. You're essentially saying it's 3 wins from safety already, and when you've only won 4 all season, that's a massive ask, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge, and obviously we've got the 2 games in hand, but the 2 games in hand
Mhm.
are Mansfield and Wrexham, which are not good.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
No, it's not. We'd rather, a relegation battle with like Colchester or Sutton or someone, but
Mhm.
it is what it is. But it has to start now. Give us all we ask for is a win to give us a bit of belief to get, and then that sends confidence through the team. Then it proves that sticking together. If that's the only problem with us, but it comes to the 75th minute and it all just goes house loose. Look at Newport, look at Salford. That last 25, it's just
And
ruins
like you said,
us.
it's stupid things, and it's stupid red cards that then end up costing you games and points. If you didn't have 2 red cards in them games, you could have 4 points. Suddenly
Exactly.
it
So
looks a lot
it's
more different, doesn't it? You're then within striking distance of Colchester and you're breathing down their neck and putting pressure on them.
exactly, and that. But obviously, as well, you can't look at the fact that Cowley brothers are at Colchester now. Salford's just got Carl Robinson. You
Yeah, I
know,
think if you look at a lot of them down there have changed their manager already this season. Tranmere changed theirs, didn't they, after a horrendous start?
yeah,
Grimsby have changed theirs, bought Dave Artelli, and you think they'd have enough. Doncaster can't be long before they potentially pull the trigger. And then, like you
yeah.
say,
So
the 3 teams above you immediately have all changed their gaffer in recent
exactly,
weeks, haven't they? Yeah.
yeah. And that's why I say now, because these teams are going to start going and getting results, grinding them. And if we don't, then we're just going to be digging back down into a hole again, where it's
Yeah,
one
it
day
does
it's just
look.
going
It
to
looks tough. If I
confirm.
was a betting man, I'm not sure I'd lump too much on you getting out of it. But you only need 1 win, don't you? This was what people said to us last season. Now, if you get one, it snowballs. And I was like, nah. I was like you, like slumped.
Yeah,
And then we beat Hartlepool first league game after the takeover, and the new signings were allowed to play. Then we went to Colchester and won. And then we went to Swindon and got the point. And suddenly, I think we'd scored more goals in 3 games than we had done in half a season, and everything changed. And then, yeah, I think we lost 2 home games from January to April, and that was massive. I think if you can get your home form sorted out, you'll have half a chance. But it's going to be tough. But I've really enjoyed talking to you, Dylan. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, mate. I've got one more question before I let you go and enjoy your evening, and that is the dreaded score prediction. How do you see Saturday ending up?
As much as I've said, I want the win to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it will. I think
Okay.
I'll go 2-0 Gills.
I've
Yeah,
said I've said 3-1 Gills. I mean, we don't score loads, but looking at how many you concede, you give up chances clearly. And
yeah,
I think what I'm hoping from our point of view, Saturday was the first time that we come from behind to win a game in the league since last February. And it was nearly 3 years since we'd last conceded first in a away game and come from behind to win, which is staggering. We still don't score enough, but we keep saying some team's going to cop an hiding soon. I'm not saying it'll be Saturday, but I'm fairly confident. But the caveat is every time I'm confident and predict a comfortable Gills when we get turned over. So there's your silver lining. Anyway, Gills fans, Forest Green fans, if you are still watching and listening at this point, thank you very much. Like I say, we are on the road to 3,000 subscribers now. We need 96. So if you are new, please hit like and please hit subscribe and tell your friends about us. We will be back Saturday, of course, inside the Priestfield Stadium for a match day live. And then myself, Reese, and I think we've got a Forest Green guest turning up Sunday morning to do match day review. Fingers crossed it will be a positive performance and a positive result for the Gills for us to look back on. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week and up the Gills.